If you're like me, you finished Dune 1984 or even the 2021 version, which I haven't seen yet, and were like,
That's it?
That's it!
So, what happens next?
Spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the movie, Paul Atreides, aka Muad'Dib, becomes emperor and takes control of Arrakis, but there are 5 other novels after which continue the Dune saga, and it just so happens there's a 3-part miniseries from 2003 starring James McAvoy and Susan Sarandon, which continues the story. So if you're curious what happens next, this video is for you, but if you don't know anything about Dune, I suggest you check out my Dune 1984 video, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. But without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe because we're taking a trip to Arrakis. Children of Dune takes place 12 years after the death of Emperor Shaddam, the dude who conspired against House Atreides in Dune. The miniseries itself encompasses 2 of Frank Herbert's sequel novels, Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, so that's what we'll be covering today. Paul Atreides, who simply goes by the name Muad'Dib, I'll be using both of those names interchangeably, has begun his crusade of colonizing the Imperium planets one by one. Any who refuse will be executed. To put things in perspective, 60 billion people have died in this crusade, but because Muad'Dib can see into the future, he knows that this isn't the worst possible outcome for humanity. If, however, he wants the best path for humanity, he must follow what's called the Golden Path, but we'll get to that in a bit. Muad'Dib rules from the Empire's new capital, the desert planet Arrakis, also known as Dune. Because of his control over the spice planet, he has a complete monopoly over spice production, the most valuable commodity in the known universe. And this monopoly does not sit well with many of the Emperor's enemies. But something is eating away at Muad'Dib. He hasn't yet been able to produce an heir with his lover Chani, and the religious zealotry of his followers has started to get out of hand. Now you might be asking yourself, why aren't Muad'Dib and Chani married? Well, in an effort to ease tensions within the various houses of the Empire, Muad'Dib marries Princess Irulan Corrino, the daughter of former Emperor Shaddam. It seems to be a marriage in title only, as Muad'Dib's real love has always been Chani. One of the main antagonists of Children of Dune is Princess Wencesia Corrino, daughter of Emperor Shaddam and his sister Irulan. Her father's grip on the Empire is no more, and her house has effectively lost most of its power, so she devises a plan to undermine Paul by creating what's called a Ghola of his old friend Duncan Idaho, who died in the original Dune. A Ghola is an artificially created human, almost like a clone, but a Ghola can possess memories of the past. The hope here is that this Ghola can be manipulated to assassinate Paul. At the same time, multiple plots against Muad'Dib and his family make life on Dune a dangerous affair. We find out someone has been poisoning Chani so that she can't conceive. Princess Wencesia has stolen a sandworm in an attempt to make spice on her own planet of Seleucia Secundus, and a terrorist attack against Muad'Dib leaves him blinded, but even though he is blinded, he is still able to see with his powers.
They blinded my body, but not my vision.
For their own safety, Muad'Dib takes Chani, who was able to conceive, to the safety of the desert. There she gives birth to twins but dies in the process. At this point, Muad'Dib, who had meddled in what he called impossible futures, still ends up in a scenario where the woman he loves dies, so he goes off into the desert to die alone. It is only then that he considers himself truly free. But that's not where the story ends. In fact, the majority of Children of Dune revolves around Paul's 2 children, Leto II, named after the Duke, and Ghanima. The story advances several years, with Leto just 6 months away from being of age to take control of the Empire. Since then, their aunt, Alia, who you may remember as the blue-eyed girl from the original Dune, has been holding power as regent. She ended up orchestrating the death of the Reverend Mother Moaim and the guild navigator Edric, right around the time of Muad'Dib's disappearance. But since then, a lot has changed. Alia has grown a cult of personality around herself, and the rituals and myths surrounding Muad'Dib have become perverted. She has turned much of Arrakis' spice sands into green pastures, limiting the amount of spice production and thus driving up demand. It has gotten so bad that a rebel group of Fremen have challenged Alia's powers, which could turn the entire planet into an all-out civil war. And to make matters worse, Alia has turned abomination. In the Dune universe, this refers to when one becomes psychologically unstable, and this manifests in Alia when she is haunted by voices, particularly that of her grandfather Vladimir Harkonnen. I don't think this this is mentioned in the 1984 version, but Lady Jessica is the illegitimate daughter of Vladimir Harkonnen, making Alia his granddaughter. Speaking of Lady Jessica, she returns to Arrakis after years off-planet. Dune to her brings back too many painful memories. After all, both her husband and son died there. This has caused resentment in Alia, who feels her mother abandoned her. You mix all this together along with some assassination attempts, and Alia becomes much like a mad king, ordering extermination of various Fremen rebel groups and building suspicion that her niece and nephew may usurp her power. We're also introduced to a character known as the Preacher, which the miniseries does a very bad job of hiding the fact that he is actually Muad'Dib returned. He isn't too happy how his name has been used to justify a lot of the bad shit going on, and with things hitting a fever pitch, Lady Jessica denounces Alia in front of the people and another assassination attempt occurs, which causes complete pandemonium throughout the palace. Leto and Ganima make it to the desert, where they are chased down by two Laza tigers sent by Princess Wencesia. This is all part of the princess's plan to regain control of the empire. If the Atreides twins are killed and Alia succumbs to madness, she may have a shot of regaining power. Leto, however, fakes his death, and his sister believes him to have died by one of these tigers. This is all part of Leto's plan to follow what is known as the Golden Path. By following the Golden Path, Leto could prevent humanity's own destruction. For Paul, the path was so arduous that he left it to live alone in the desert. Because he could see the future, he knew the drastic measures he would have had to take in order for humanity to avoid annihilation, and that was just too much for him. His son Leto, on the other hand, embraced the Golden Path. On his journey, he stumbles upon a smuggler's den where sand trout are sold off-world to the highest bidder. Sand trout are basically baby sandworms who, over the course of thousands of years, turn into these giant sandworms we see on Dune. Leto ends up allowing the sandworms to attach themselves to his body, which begins a process of transformation, affording him superhuman-like abilities even greater than what he already has. This gives him super speed, agility, and strength. Alia, believing her nephew to be dead and with enemies around her at every turn, agrees to a political marriage of convenience between Ganima and Princess Wencesia's son, Sarandon. This was an arrangement designed behind Alia's back by Duncan Idaho. In the book, these two are married, but the miniseries portrays them as lovers. Duncan will later kill Alia's lover Javid in the neutral territory of Sech Tabar, essentially forcing Stilgar, who up to this point was neutral, to join the war against Alia. You see, once Alia would find out her lover was killed on this neutral territory, she'd attack Stilgar's Fremen tribe in retaliation. At the same time, Leto finds his father in the desert. Up until this point, he had only seen his father in dreams. Leto tells him he wishes to make a future free of one man's vision, free of a future that is predetermined, and he hopes with himself at the helm he can do this. So he ventures back to Arrakeen to seize control from his crazy aunt. At the capital, Princess Wencesia arrives with her son for the marriage between him and Ganima. Ganima earlier told Irulan that she hates this marriage and will kill Sarandon on their wedding night, but something completely unexpected happens here, something the miniseries doesn't do a particularly good job at, probably because they simply didn't have enough time. Sarandon betrays his mother and openly tells them that it was his mom who was responsible for assassinating Leto. Remember, they still think he died from that tiger. This betrayal was spurred by years of abuse Sarandon received from his mother, who thought he was weak and would never be a man. It's only after this betrayal and the princess is banished that she finally sees him as a man.
You're more of a man than I ever thought possible.
Sarandon tells Ganima this is her wedding present. How cute! Muad'Dib returns to Arrakeen and causes a stir as a crowd forms around him. He believes that one blasphemy remains, and that is Alia. Sensing this preacher is her brother, Alia hides herself among the crowd only to be discovered by him. It's only a brief moment before a Fremen assassin kills Muad'Dib. Leto arrives and holds his father in his hands as the two disappear into the sand. We then awkwardly transition to the wedding, which seems to be going on even after this big event. Leto interrupts the service to put an end to Alia once and for all.
To rid humanity of the perversions done in Muad'Dib's name, and to save it from the abomination known as Alia.
We get to see Leto's proficiency in the weirding way, this close hand-to-hand combat that allows him to teleport around and make quick work of Alia's guards. Alia then joins the fight but isn't strong enough to take down her nephew. He ultimately gives her the opportunity to kill him as the voice of Baron Harkonnen yells at her to finish him, but Alia breaks free of these voices and ultimately chooses to kill herself, thus ending her reign of terror. Lady Jessica leaves Dune while Gurney and Irulan stay. Leto returns to Stilgar with Alia's water water and asks him to spread it among the sand. Think of it as the Fremen way of spreading ashes. He also gives him his father's signet ring that once belonged to both Paul and Leto I. It's a sign that all humans make mistakes. Not mentioned in the miniseries, but Leto ends up as emperor, marrying his sister to consolidate power. But this is purely a political move, and the two never consummate their marriage. Ghanima ends up having children with Farad'n, her concubine. That's where the Children of Dune miniseries ends. However, there are 3 more novels after this, but as far as I know, no big budget shows or films that cover them. I'm hoping to cover the new Dune movie when it hits theaters later this month, so be sure to like and subscribe and stick around for that. Thanks for watching, everyone. For more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.